Getting into conversations this hour, and we're going to again look at numbers of people who've entered into the market and what is going to happen with them. In this case, we're not necessarily talking about the job market, we're talking about the education market and what happens with that. The principal secretary in the State Department for TVET is Dr. Esther Thaara Muoria, and she's our guest this hour. PS, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes.
And we are glad that you're here this morning.
Yes.
These numbers are huge numbers. And also then we are going to ask questions about, what the plan is. And you share some of those with us today. But even before that, let's start off. CT here goes around the African continent every week. Every week he comes back from one country with a basket of proverbs. He shares those with us, and then now you would interpret that and tell us what you think that proverb is saying. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Fantastic.
Good.
Karibu tena.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are in the Republic of Niger. I keep saying it's called Niger.
It's Niger.
It's Niger.
Yes.
Not Niger.
No, the river in Nigeria is called Niger.
Mm-hmm. The river is Niger.
Yes.
And
the
that
country.
river, and
the
that
country
river,
is Niger.
And do you find part of that river in Niger as well?
No.
Why not?
Well, actually, yes. Actually, you do.
Yes.
Part of that river is in
I was
Niger.
actually getting that. It
It
is.
is. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Remember the story I was telling you earlier on about how these rivers connect countries across this particular continent? Mm-hmm. Well, if you are in East Africa, just think of the Nile.
Yes.
And look at the number of countries that it touches.
Mm-hmm.
And up to Egypt, North Africa. Yes, I have to point out when I'm talking about Egypt.
But of course.
North upwards.
And north. Well, it's north, I don't know, but north. Anyway, the proverb. Water may cover the footprints on the ground, but it does not cover the words of the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let me repeat that proverb.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to tell me what you think of it and how applicable you think it is and where you'd apply it. Mm-hmm. Water may cover the footprints on the ground, but it does not cover the words of the mouth.
Wow. I'm not quite sure, but what that might mean is when you step on the ground, you leave some footprints.
Right.
The water may pass by and sweep the footprints.
Yes.
But the words of the mouth are in the air. And there is no water in the air unless you're talking about the rain. But because you're talking about rivers here, once the words are out of the mouth, then something else might have to be constructed to dissolve them. Water may dissolve the footprints on the ground, but the water is in the air, maybe the rain, not the river. I don't know.
Interesting.
No, your perspective is spot on. Yes, you've given it a very broad understanding, and thank you.
There you go.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so P.S. As we look at the conversations that we're having this morning, if TVET actually is a game changer when it comes to the preparedness of these 2024 KCSC candidates who will be coming to TVET at some point for their further education, and so we're getting into the space where, we had just under 1 million students who wrote the KCSC in December last year. I believe the numbers that would go to university just went above 200,000. So that leaves, give or take, 700 and something thousand odd who would be looking for a space when it comes to higher education. Those are large numbers. So let's start from the overall, whereby we ask the question, are TVET ready to take in these large numbers, because they've got to continue with an education, haven't they?
Thank you very much, Drew, for that question. Yes, we are having roughly 716,000 young people who may not be proceeding to the universities, at least in Kenya, and the government of Kenya has to make up their minds, have to get space for them. And let me say that in TVET, we are prepared to skill them, to give them space, to give them hope, and to give them a future. Because across the country, we have a TVET institution in every constituency. Here we are talking about access. In every constituency in this country, you find a TVET institution, and it is the commitment of the government of Kenya to have all these institutions across the country so that nobody has an excuse to say that they have to come to Nairobi or they have to go to Mombasa or they have to go to Kisumu to get TVET education. We have about 50 that we are yet to do as government. But even in those constituencies where we don't have a constituency TVET, we have other TVET-related institutions like VTCs, vocational training centers, where anybody can go and apply.
Okay.
And as we speak now, that is access. Therefore, we are ready as far as the space, the physical space, to bring in these people is concerned. Secondly, last year, the government was able to employ another 3,300 trainers to come into our institution to be able to skill these young people. And we now have what we called KTTC before. It is now the Kenya School of TVET. So once we employ these young people, the Kenya School of TVET has been going to the institutions across the country. We are not spending money asking these people to come all the way to Nairobi. We are getting Kenya School of TVET to go to the institutions, to the regions, to go and upskill these young people who we are bringing into the institutions to be able to craft these trainees, the 716 plus, who are getting out of high school. Again, we have recrafted the TVET curricula so that we are talking about training skills, not training anything theoretical.
Okay.
So that just as I was coming in, His Excellency the President ordered the CDAC, that is the Curriculum Development Assessment and Certification Council, our NEC. The NEC, NEC is the one which is no. So our NEC,
your neck.
Our NEC is called CDAC, Curriculum Development Assessment and Certification Council. He ordered CDAC to be brought back. And we recruited a CEO called Professor Kisilo Kitange, who is in place, to ensure that we develop the requisite curricula and we train it. I have talked about the institutions and the trainers, and also to be able to assess and certify those young people. On Thursday, today is Monday, on Thursday, we were actually releasing results with CDAC at KCSC for 65,000 people who had been assessed by CDAC for certification. Again, the government of Kenya now has, I think, 38 national polytechnics. What is the meaning of having national polytechnics across the country? National polytechnics are also qualification awarding institutions. So that the national polytechnics also have a mandate to develop curricula, train it, and certify the young people. So again, we are not telling young people across the country that they must wait until they have to be certified by CDAC.
Yeah, all right.
We are saying that the national polytechnics, because they have a mandate to develop their own curricula, train and assess and certify, these young people can go to school for 3 months. They are trained in, say, masonry.
Okay.
To exactness. And the national polytechnics have the mandate to assess them and certify them. And that certification is recognized across the country.
Okay.
And let me be in a hurry to say, even across Africa, we are now coming up with what we are calling African Continental Qualification Framework. And we are going to load all these qualifications on the ACQF so that you can leave the country and go to South Africa and be recognized with a national polytechnic from Kisumu National Polytechnic, and you can work anywhere in this continent, and their eyes see across the world.
Okay, so this is interesting because we often have the conversation where we talk about, looking on the in other parts of the world. Now that you talk about a worldwide qualification,
yes,
is that you want to ask yourself. You talk about masonry, you talk about plumbing, you talk about many careers that for a lot of people have been. They've been lifelong careers, and they've also been careers upon which retirement brings in a pretty basket, right? But sometimes we look at it here as like, okay, something you can just do, and that you can sit under the apprenticeship of somebody and then get, experience.
The skills, yes.
But here we are saying that, has it finally gotten to the time, PS, whereby we will send young people who want a skill, who want to be able to have a skill, and there's actually a science that can be applied to it, that you come out with the necessary certification and that you can apply this skill in a worthy career, as opposed to something that's looked down upon and we say, okay, just get a guy from the side of the road. But we say, no, you will then be able to have professionals, skilled professionals, who will then be able to contribute right here or wherever it is that they go with that global qualification. Have we gotten to that point?
Yes, and I can tell you, yes, with that absoluteness, from two perspectives. One is what I have already spoken about, that we are developing and training. We are developing curricula and ensuring that we are skilling these young people from industry, with industry, for industry. And this is industry across the world, like I've already said. The other day, I have said from two perspectives. One is from the perspective of our training. Then I will go to the perspective of those who have already learned through apprenticeship and what we are doing with them or for them. So, the other day, Cabinet passed what we are calling the dual training policy. Dual training policy is a policy that is encouraging industry to be able to work with us for these young people, so that we are speaking to industry and telling them, everyone, we are still rolling out this policy because it was passed by Cabinet just the other day. So we are speaking to industry and telling them, come on board, you train with us. This and this and this is what the government is ready to do for you to be on board to train these young people. So that we are saying as TVET, that our young people are going to be 40 to 50% in class, then 50 to 70% in industry.
Okay.
So that we have the young people training as much as possible with the skills that they need to be doing. They should have internalized the culture of the space where they are going to continue to work. We are getting out of the space, and we must get out of the space where industry has been complaining that they are getting half-cooked graduates.
Yes. Yep.
They go to industry, and I have seen in some motor industries, Anki, where they have classes in industry, because the young people are employed and then they have to take them to these classes. That is the space we want to help industry exit from.
But isn't that what we're talking about, PS? For example, we've been talking about, you may have heard when we came in, we're talking about the KCB Tujiajiri program. That program is training young people.
Yes.
But where are they going? They're going to TVETs.
Yes.
In that training, it's at the TVETs that they're getting the training, and they're getting into these workspaces or being able to start their own business.
Yes.
So what TVETs can actually do in this country for young people, I think, is monumental. But essentially, we don't know enough of what or how folks can get into it. Which now segues to my question is, when students are in Form 4, CUSPs, the University Placement Program, are TVETs involved in this placement program as well? Because young people, when they're writing their KCSC, for example, the goal is a university, and you may want to do something else.
I'll tell you how we are.
You may want to do something else. So how are TVETs involved in this? If we are saying that we have so many institutions around the country, a skilled program, and that you can come out on top, but it's where is it being placed?
We are changing that perspective. We are changing that space in this way. Right now, if you go to CUPS, the portal is open for two spaces, applications. TVET and KMTC. Those are the ones that are open. University, not yet.
Okay.
So we have agreed with COOPS that as soon as the results are out, the portal is open for COOPS to place our students into all the institutions across the country. So if you check now, the COOPS portal has been open actually, I think, since the beginning of February for these students to be able to, and COOPS is placing them. Secondly, as TVET, we have gone ahead to establish a TVET desk at COOPS. Okay. So we are working very closely to COOPS so that we place these students. Secondly, I was talking to my colleague Piers Bellew the other day, and we agreed that I'm actually drafting a memo for his signature to his principals across the country. Okay. What are we going to ask them to do? We are going to ask them, as they hold the conversation with students as they go to do their examination, please, can they tell them there are different pathways? It is not just about the university.
All right.
Because we all won't fit there, whether we like it or not. We have to introduce different pathways. And therefore, the principals are going to be telling the young people as they do the examination about all these other different pathways. And for me, they need to be told that they need to proceed to the TVET institutions and what is there for them. I agree with you, that this is a space that had not been spoken about and brought to light for a long time. But we are determined. I have personally been on a lot of these radio and TV stations to tell the young people what we have in place for them. And let me tell you, it is a lot. We have all these skills across the board that we are able to train them, and we are ready for them. And therefore, the principals in high schools should be able to help us spread this gospel, and I've already agreed on this with my Piers Bellew. Secondly, you had asked me before about these young people, or some of them are even old, who have learned on apprenticeship.
Yes.
And they are not certified. And they may not be able to work elsewhere. People think we have a program called Recognition of Prior Learning.
Okay.
I have now established a directorate of recognition of prior learning at Kabete National Polytechnic.
Okay.
Under one very experienced man called Mr. Maindi. What is Mr. Maindi supposed to do? He is supposed to coordinate all the skilled people across the country. Before, we had left it to the institutions. If you are in Sigalagala or around Luyaland, you can go to Sigalagala to be assessed, to be certified.
Okay.
But we realized this is not going to work quite well. We need somebody to be responsible for recognition of of prior learning. Let him get all the people who are actually very well skilled to come, be assessed, be certified, and yes, they can thereafter work anywhere across the world or even start their businesses, and the government should be able to license them because they are certified.
All right.
Yes.
No, please go ahead.
Yes, I've really wanted to ask this question. In as far as the labor market research is concerned, there's critics who say that there's inefficiency in the information you're given to actually inform the curricula that you're saying you're developing. Of course, there is the industry to the institution linkage, and I appreciate that. But the market research, so that you understand the needs aligned with the industries, besides just giving them a part there, but how informed or how has it been strengthened that you are actually informed as you develop the curricula on the market needs this far?
Anki, there is what we call the OSs.
Yes.
The OSs are developed by the Department of Labor. That is the occupational standards.
Yes.
And with labor, we have what we call the SCAT, Sector Skills Councils. And those sector skills councils, they are able to tell us, for this skill, this is what you need. And it is with the sector skills councils that we are able to develop the occupational standards. So we do not develop curricula until and unless we have the occupational standards.
All right.
So from labor, we acquire the OSS, occupational standards, and those are the ones we use. Actually, actually we develop curricula with SCACs, which are the councils from the Department of Labor, because they are the ones who understand what industry needs. So for us, we have to work together for the OSs with the SCACs to be able to develop the curricula that we are going to train.
All right.
So we are in sync.
Why do you think, PS, and I think if usually we say that if you're trying to figure out something, you need to understand the why of the issue.
Yes.
Previously, that there hasn't been so much hunger or appetite for young people to go towards TVET to get this learning and training, that we are saying suddenly will change now. What do you think the problem has been previously?
I think to a very large extent, it is the communication, and you and I do agree that communication is very important. Unfortunately, on the ground, we have what we call the vocational training centers, which are actually devolved. They belong to the counties, but that does not mean they are not equally a government concern. So people, I think, have been having the idea of TVET from the VTCs, where I'm sorry to say, maybe learning is not even very serious.
Interesting.
And we haven't anchored them very, very well. But when you look at the TVET space, and this is, and let me blame it on lack of communication, constant communication. Either way, it is lack of constant communication. Like, I think we as government have not been in these spaces to be able to tell people that we exist and exist in a big way. If you go to Eldoret National Polytechnic is an institution that is better than any university in this country. Go to Nyeri National Polytechnic. They are requisite institutions for any young people to be there, and I have been encouraging them to make them as big and as requisite and as beautiful and as attractive as possible. So there has been this issue of communication and communication and communication. And the bigger communication should have been, and has not been, that you can make a very good livelihood by going to these institutions and getting a skill. Because once you are skilled, you can start your own business, you will be employed, you can work across the country, etc., etc. So I think I would blame it a lot to the communication that has not been effectively done to tell the young people that actually, in the yesteryears, when we had some of the technical institutions that were later changed to institutions, we trained very requisite people. And I dare say, the people who are trained in those institutions are actually the people who babysat this country to the level of development that we have today. Because these are the people that I saw as I was also going to school, making all this electric wiring and electric doing. We needed those people to be able to do that. I used to see veterinary and agricultural extension officers coming to even our home to show my father how to make coffee do well. When those people disappeared, coffee industry fell to a very large extent because we lacked these technically trained people in the middle level. Go to a lot of ministries, the draftsmen, they're the ones who drew all these bridges that you see there. It's not the engineers.
There you go.
It is these people who are trained at the technical level. So I am convicted that these are the people who babysat this country to where we are. Then probably we made a mistake of dropping the ball. We must go back there. And I am telling you, if we insist on this space, train enough skilled people, we are going to be the Singapore of Africa. Okay. Because I have been to South Korea. I have been to Germany, of course. In fact, Germany is our example. These are the countries that have developed to where we are because they have enough technically trained people. China is now doing quite well. I was in China the other day and I saw them produce a vehicle every 59 seconds.
Wow.
There was a new vehicle getting out. And let me tell you, when you look at the people who are manning that industry, it is this technical, because we were going there, And we went now to see what the technical students, not even graduates, were doing. We went to those industries. It is the people who are learning the skills who are actually producing that car every 59 seconds.
Right.
So these countries are going to where they are going. Talk to the Tiger 5. They will tell you it is about the technically trained people who have been able to babysit them to their development levels.
CT?
You know, given what you've just said, you know, it's very gripping just listening to what you're saying. And I was picturing where we could actually go, and you're right. You're clear, very, very right. You mentioned earlier on the former KTTC. What do you say it's called now?
Kenya School of TVET.
Kenya School of TVET. And you said that you have personnel who make it possible for people who are in small institutions elsewhere in the country to be able to get to upskill and to certify perhaps their qualifications. Just walk us through this again and tell us. I want to know how it's done.
The RPL.
Yes.
You are trained in this. You have been trained in this station, and you have. Let me assume you don't have a certificate, but you have come here. You have interacted with all these machines, and you have become very good in doing what you are doing. All right. So, but nobody has given you a certificate because you just came here and you have been able to be walked around all these machines and you know them and you can operate them very, very well. All right. But now, if you are to get out of this space and you want to start a business of your own, you see, first of all, the government will not give you the requisite papers because you yourself do not have the requisite papers. All right. So we are inviting you to any of our institutions. We have the requisite curricula to be able to assess you. We are going to look at what you are able to do. We are going to listen to your story, what you have been able to do, what you have been able to acquire. And we are going, because my trainers in the field are also very well skilled. They will be able to assess you and they'll be able to say whether they are going to give you this level of certification or this level of certification. And from there you can upscale. Or you can upskill if you want. So, in other words, we are saying there is a lot of Juakali people. Some of them are on these roads making very nice seats.
Right.
All right. But many of them, if you ask them, they don't have any papers. So those are the people we are inviting.
Yeah.
At Kabete National Polytechnic, they speak to Mindy. Mindy will be able to link them to any of our assessors across the country. And they will be able to assess them. They will be able to place you at whatever level that you should be placed. And from there, you can come back to our institution, learn if you want to learn, upskill to whatever level you want. And we have level 3 to level 6. Level 6 is a diploma. After that, we now have what we call KCATS, Kenya the transfer of your qualifications, and you can go to the university. I was at Samburu, the TVC on Friday, and I had 2 students who are graduating, but they are already in the university. They are in the second year of their university. So from there, you can learn to whichever level that you
want. All right. PS and the State Department of TVET, Dr. Esther Muoria is our guest this hour. And we come back and look at, all right, the capacity that, the country has to take on these large numbers and what actually it can do for them in the future. Even as we continue our conversation with PS this morning, one of the questions that comes through is that how well funded and managed are TVETs to ensure that whatever is required, I mean, because if we're looking at this number and we're saying take the 716 or the 700 or the 650 that may come 2026, is there the capability to absorb these numbers and to do so with proficiency?
Resources are never enough. Let me start there. But that does not mean that we are still not required to struggle through. Actually, for this year, for the Department of TVET, we are not just talking about the 716,000. As a department, we are determined to be at 2 million by the end of the year. Right now, we are slightly over 500,000, but we want to push it. And we have marketing groups out there in the field who are working with Ngao. And I have had a very good conversation with my colleague, PS Omolo, who has been able to write letters to the Ngao family to be able to work with TVET to get out all the young people who are there in the field to come to the TVET institution. In other words, as government, we are committed to 100% transition so that we do not have young people out there not getting trained, because we have courses ranging from 3 months to 6 months to 1 year to 2 years to 3 years, whatever you choose. So we are talking about 100% transition funding. As I have said, I want to say that as government, we wouldn't want to pretend that we are at 100% ability to fund our space. But we are doing our best. We are going to continue struggling. The other day, when we had the higher education funding model, for us as TVET, it was working very well. Because fortunately for us, we have only one figure, round about 85,000, to be able to train each and every one of us. So even the budding, which the public and the courts were complaining about, was not an issue to us. The government is able to fund each student at 85%, at 85,000, to be able to go through the training. But unfortunately, it has been stopped. But for us, it was working very, very well. So we are praying and hoping, and I've had this conversation with my CS, Migos Ogamba, to be able to persuade the courts to be able to bring back, actually, to split the funding for TVETs and universities, so that as TVET, we have the funding model, because we were not complaining. All these complaints about not about TVET, they were about the universities, although it was called higher education funding anyway. So if we are able to go back there, and the government is able to fund every trainee at 85,000 per year, for us in TVET, we shall be very comfortable. So right now, what we have gone back to, or what we are depending on, is what we call capitation. That is what was there before the funding model. So the government is still able to fund the students' capitation, but not as to the complete figure that we'll be talking about, 30,000 per student. I think the last batch we were able to do was at 13,000, but we are still hoping for more, because these students are not being funded all the 30,000 or all the 85,000 at a go. So it's a struggle, because we have everybody in Kenya is looking at Treasury to fund them. So it is not. I wouldn't want to lie and say that it is at 100%, but I can assure you that we as government are doing our best to ensure that we retain our young people in the institutions. And remember, even when we had the funding model, there was a small percentage, around, I think, 15,000 for us per year, that the parents or the guardians should be able to fund. Again, we are dependent. We are depending on that, and with that, we are able to keep the young people in school even as the government funding comes in.
All right, fair enough. But notwithstanding,
yes,
you wouldn't say you're so independent from the private sector. And I'm so curious to understand the contributions they put into what you're doing and what your vision is, because there are arguments that private sectors would rather, spend money training their own workforce. I mean, arguing that there's a little bit half-baked, individuals coming from the TVETs, which of course you cancelled out and said you're actually working on bringing out very, very competent individuals to go across the continent, all over the world. But at this point, I'm curious to understand, to what extent does the private sector support you, or what really is the relationship this far with the private sector, if any, or are they not needed?
Anki, I did not completely cancel out the much needed participation of the private sector in training these young people.
Okay.
We really have to work together, and that is why I also quickly brought in the policy that the government was able to pass the dual training policy that that cabinet was able to pass the other day, and I said that policy is speaking to our working together with the private sector with industry to be able to train these young people so that they do not have to retrain them after we have trained them. So we are looking at a space where where private sector is going to work with government and understand how government is going to support the industries that have agreed to train with us. All right. Once that has been, but we are rolling out that policy.
Okay.
Once that has been able to be put on the ground, then we will come to a situation where we will even find that industry wants to take up even equipping some of these institutions because they now understand that it is actually to a large extent also their benefit that these young people are requisitely trained. But one step at a time.
Okay.
Rome was not built in a day. I have been to countries where the private sector has actually built hostels and workshops and all of you for the technical institutions because they have been able to equip them. They have been able to purchase equipment that is a duplication of what they have in the industries, so that you train them with the equipment that they're brought to the institutions, so that once they transit to the industries, they just transit and continue working with that equipment. So we are looking forward in Kenya to getting to a situation where we are working so seamlessly with industry that they will see the need to actively support the TVET institutions so that we are just training the workforce for them. And again, remember, Anki, we are looking at a situation where sooner than later, with time, we are going to get a lot of industries coming to invest into Kenya. All right?
All right.
Let me digress a bit and tell you what I've always told those who care to listen to me. For a country to get industrialized, you need 4 M's. Some academicians will tell you 5 or 6. But for me, there are 4. You need money, you need machinery, you need market, and you need man.
Right.
For me, man is the most important, and that is the skilled workforce that we must come up with in Kenya to be able to tell the world, to be able to tell investors, to tell those who have the money, they have the machinery, they have the market, to come to Kenya and invest here because we have the man. So for us, we want to put our best foot forward, create a pool of the skilled young people so that international investors, Kenyan investors, Ugandan investors are encouraged to come and invest here, build their industries here. Okay? By the time we are moving there, then these industries will actually want to come and support the TVET industries to continue training the workforce that they need. That is where we are hoping to walk to. To walk to a situation where as industries come, they will want to come and actively work with the people who are training the much needed man. Because you can have all these machines that you have here, Anki, but unless you have you people manning them and manning them properly, nothing would happen here.
Can I ask this question?
Yes.
We have a technical university.
Yes.
What role does it play in this whole conversation?
Not as much as it should. And that is because when we as government give the mandate to the technical universities, we give them the mandate of universities like any other. All right? So they were at liberty to train all the skills that they needed, that they wanted to train as a university. All right? So they are to a very large extent universities like any other. I don't think, and I stand to be corrected, that there is a lot of difference between what we may want to call a technical university in Kenya today and any other university. Honestly speaking, for me, my dream is once we have been able to put the TVETs in the requisite position that they should be, we will then be able to come up with what we may want to call a polytechnic university.
Okay.
There what is this? What is this thing we give the universities when they become universities?
A charter.
Charter, yes, this is the word I'm looking for. And we charter them as such, not chartering them like any other university. And that is the small mistake as government, which we own, may have made, I started to be corrected, in chartering these universities like...
At will.
Like universities. Because let me tell you, when I came to this space, my boss sent me to, and I had not thought about this.
Okay.
To a graduation at one of the technical universities. I'm not going to say which one. And the graduation booklet was full of
You can
become graduates.
Yep.
I'm not saying become graduates.
No. Of every other discipline.
Yes.
Yes.
And that put me aback also, because you see, until you are in a space, you may not take much interest in what is happening.
Right.
And I was like, I mean, so what we are saying is the charter may not have been dictatorial enough to say this is what you're supposed to train. And let me tell you, there is one time we tried to have that conversation of redirecting them to where they may have supposed to have been. And it is not going to be easy because, you see, it's already established as such. So until and unless, as government, we come up with what I may want to call a polytechnic university, like some I have seen out there, then probably the university space, we are not quite there.
You know, there was, once upon a time, I was a teacher. And the school I first taught in was called Technical High School. We had very many technical high schools in this country.
Yes, we did.
And I remember what you call the other discipline, whether it is science, whether it's the arts, like Kiswahili was taught in Form 1 and 2. That was it. The focus that you'd have on many other subjects were actually given to technical subjects. We used to call them woodwork, metalwork, drawing, whatever it was. But it meant that from that particular... And there were also what they called village polytechnics then. Yeah. For people who had finished Standard 7, because it was Standard 7, you could actually go into it. Whatever happened to these institutions?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened. Yes, and I agree with you. When I was choosing a school to go to Form 1 myself, I wanted to go to Ngabune because it was a technical secondary school. There were many of them.
Yes,
then.
there were.
And I have some of my directors now who were actually trained in those schools. And they went to the technical, the let me call them TVETs of those days. And they're just actually technical people. But now, like I said earlier on, for some reason we exited that space.
You know, it is sad because this Saturday, I was telling my colleagues earlier on, I met with the students whom I taught at that point in time when I began my teaching career.
Yes.
It was instructive to observe how it is they have excelled in technical fields.
Yes.
ICT hadn't come by then,
but
some of them are now ICT heads in institutions.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So I'm simply saying that an opportunity was lost. I taught in other schools as well who had some technical aspect. Those were disbanded. The rooms were there, the equipment was there, but nothing was happened. It was a terrible misstep on our part.
And in fact, looking at how the world entirely is progressing into AI, and if you look at Kenya alone, projecting that unemployment will be increasing by the time 2023 at 5.57%. It was projected to be 6.61%. We're now in 2025. We could be getting more unemployment. And President William Ruto has kept pushing that these TVETs are to actually make empowered, or rather empower young people to put money in the pockets. Now, there is that shake up a bit in the threat of, you said the 4 M's, but we're looking at AI, and guys are like, will it really work for us with all the machinery, technology, and AI coming in? Because that is one of the reassurances that people need to talk about in far as mentality and stigma is concerned.
I will answer that very quickly and tell you that skills, well-taught skills, will not lose space, whatever the technological advancement that we are talking about.
All right.
Skills will be what the AIs and all the technological advancements that we are talking about will leverage on to be able to exist. Because I will tell you, all these technology and machines that you have here, until and unless you have the technical staff sitting somewhere behind here, where you have a lot of, I am confident, you have a lot of technical staff that you are hiding behind here.
Yes, we do.
Who are making it possible for you to sit here and be able to look very nice.
Yeah,
but
true.
there is somebody who is actually upholding this technology.
Indeed,
to
true.
be where it is. So we must train the technical people.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's clear that there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of communication metrics that has to be met. But, we're glad that, you're on top of things.
And do let me tell you.
Yes. Yeah.
When when me and you learned to drive, maybe my brother here.
Why am I left out?
I don't know. Because you may have learned to drive with these ones, which came the other day.
Automatic.
It was technical.
We learned to drive with the gears and all that.
It's called a stick shift.
Yeah.
A stick shift.
Yes.
And we were made to stand uphill, and that can not to move
Backward.
That's how we passed our exams. Now, when the Anki's cars came, we did not go back to school to learn it again. We simply drove those that
Automatic.
came.
Yeah.
So a skill has its place that will not go.
There you go.
As technology comes, as the AI comes, we will simply shift to the new technology and be able to move on. But so that is why I was saying a well-crafted and taught skill has its place. That is not arguable.
There you go. All
right.
And even as you've shared that with us, a lot of work to be done, but we definitely would like you to come again and tell us that progress as it continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thank you.
Asante Sana for being here. The Principal Secretary, State Department of TVET, Dr. Esther Thaara Muoria, has been our guest this hour.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.